Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby and today I'm going to be doing a very exciting video because I recently hit 20,000 subscribers on this channel. I hit 20,000 subscribers on August 20th, which is crazy. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe that I'm already at 20,000. Like, everything's happening so fast and I just can't believe this channel has grown the way it has this last year. Like, I'm just so grateful and so appreciative. I asked the other day on a community post on YouTube, I asked like what kind of video you would want to see from me if I hit 20k, and a lot of them were like reading challenge kind of videos, but like I just have so many other things planned right now that I don't really have time to do like a reading challenge kind of video right now. So I thought instead I would do 20 books I read because of BookTube, and I thought that that would be a great way to celebrate 20k because BookTube is a place where I have discovered so many of the books that I loved, and so I thought that would be a fun way of celebrating 20k with y'all. So the first 10 books that I'm gonna mention are books that I got specifically recommended from certain booktubers. So like these are booktubers that I've been watching for probably years that I saw them talk about this said book, and then it made me want to read it. It made me want to go out and get it. So I will be linking down below all of these booktubers channels that I'm going to mention. And then the next 10 are going to be books that were recommended to me kind of by you. Like the next 10 books are going to be the ones that I got comments on like almost every single video being like, you need to read this book, or these are just books that I saw going around BookTube a lot, and I can't remember any one specific person that was like really hyped over it, but it was just like around BookTube a lot. So let's just jump into the first 10. The first 10 are going to be books that I read because of a specific booktuber. Alright, so the first booktuber and book recommendation I want to tell you about is Emily Fox. She's one of my favorite booktubers. I've been watching her for a few years now, and she recommended The Humans by Matt Haig. She reads a lot more sci-fi on her channel, and when she explained the synopsis of this book, I was just like, holy crap, like that sounds so interesting, I have to read it. And this book became my #1 favorite book of 2018. Like, it was my favorite thing that I read last year, and I never would have read it if I hadn't discovered it through Emily Fox's channel. So like, holy crap, big thanks, because this is now one of my favorite books of all time. Like, it's up there, it's one of my #1 favorite books of all time. Alright, the second book and booktuber that I have is Chelsea Darling Reads, who is another one of my favorite booktubers. I've been watching her for years as well, and she recommended Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. And this book is another one that I've just seen going around BookTube a lot, but I specifically remember Chelsea really like loving this book, and so I remember just being like really excited to read it because of her excitement about it. And this one is like a young adult contemporary magical realism novel, and it's just really beautiful, and I enjoyed it a lot. Alright, the next booktuber is gonna be Books and Lala, who, if you watch my channel, you probably know that she's my favorite booktuber, and because of her I have read 2 books. The first one I read because of her is A House at the Bottom of a Lake by Josh Malerman, and the second one I read because of her is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This book ended up becoming one of my favorites ever. I read this earlier this year, and this book is just very strange, and it's definitely not for everyone, but this book is just so cool. It's so weird, and I just remember her like really hyping this book up on her channel, and I loved it so much. The Secret History by Donna Tartt, I remember her saying is like one of her favorite books of all time, and so I finally read it last year. I wasn't as big of a fan of this one. Like, I ended up giving this one like 3.5 out of 5 stars or something, but I still really enjoyed it, and I can see why a lot of people would really like this book. Alright, the fourth booktuber I wanted to mention is Dylan from Dylan the Reader. Dylan is one of my BFFs, and back in the day, he encouraged me to read Eliza and Her Monsters, and I just remember him like absolutely loving the holy shit out of this book, and then I read it, and I really enjoyed this book. And this one is like a young adult contemporary novel that follows this girl who is like an artist. It's very fangirl vibes, you know, which I think is why I enjoyed it so much, and probably why he enjoyed it so much. The next one I have for you is from Christine Riccio, which, you know, is one of the biggest, if not the biggest booktuber out there. And so she encouraged me to read Scythe by Neil Shusterman, because I just remember her being super hyped about these books last year, and like these books are completely out of my comfort zone and not something I would usually read anyways, but I remember her excitement making me like want to go and read them, even though I thought to myself like, well, I probably won't like those because they're like young adult dystopian, so like, but I'm so glad I did end up picking up this book and series because it's become one of my favorites. And I just remember her hyping it up so much, and I just appreciate that, because if I had not seen her videos of her hyping this book up, I probably would have never been interested in reading this. So thanks, Christine. The next one is actually a bookstagrammer, not a booktuber, so this title is actually a bunch of lies. But that bookstagrammer is Jordy's Book Club. He has this hashtag that goes around Instagram called Jordy Made Me Do It or something like that because he is very convincing when it comes to making people read books that he loves. And because of his Instagram, I read Miracle Creek by Angie Kim because he was hyping this book up all year long. And like, I wanted to read this book obviously when I chose it for one of my book of the month selections, but I had just pushed it aside and I was like not really probably ever gonna get around to it. Like, it was just one of those things. And then I saw his post just like raving about this book, and he was saying it's like his favorite book of the year. And so I finally was like, you know what, yeah, like let me bump that one up on my TBR and I'll get to it. And I'm so glad I did because I love this book so much. The next booktuber I have is Mel to the Any, Melanie, who is one of my favorite booktubers and one of my favorite human beings on this planet. She's one of my friends and I just really love her so much. And because of her booktube channel, I read A Heart and a Body in the World by Deb Coletti. And I specifically remember her reading this book, I think during Contemporary-a-thon. And I remember watching her vlogs and being like, oh my god, like I need to read that book. And I went to Barnes & Noble like the next day and I bought this book because of how much she raved about it. And like, I'm so glad I did because I really, really enjoyed this book. This book was so good. It was so sad. It like broke my heart, and there are some heavy trigger warning things in this book. Just be warned. But yeah, thanks Melanie. Thank you for recommending me this. I love this book. Number 8 is from Emma Books, who is like one of the biggest booktubers out there and another one that I've been watching for years. And because of her, I read Renegades by Marissa Meyer because I specifically remember her saying that this book was like either like the #1 or like in top 3 of her favorite books of the year when I watched her end of the year videos a couple years back. I was just like, holy shit, like I need to read this immediately. And it just got me so excited to read it. And unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy this book. I just found it to be like too long and a little bit too boring and just like not really my thing. But I still read it because of her, so I think that's really awesome. The 9th book I read because of a booktuber is from Katie Wismere, and she really hyped up the book The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis for me. I remember her mentioning this book on her channel like over and over and over and over again, and I was like, oh my god, like I need to read this book, like I need to know. And I'm so glad I did because this book is just so feminist, but it's like also like the female version of Dexter. And it's great. All right, and the last booktuber that I have is Jesse the Reader, who is also one of the biggest booktubers out there, so you've probably heard of him. Because of him, I read the book A List of Cages by Robin Rowe, because I remember a couple years back him being really, really obsessed with this book and passionate about this book, and then it encouraged me to want to go out there and read it. And I did, and it was really beautiful and really sad, and just a really, really great story. So thank you, Jesse. I'm so glad I read this book. All right, and these next ones are all just gonna be books that you guys recommended me or that I just saw going around BookTube a lot. The first one I have is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I don't even know how many comments I got about this book on my channel being like, you need to read Where the Crawdads Sing. Where the Crawdads Sing is the best book of 2018. Why haven't you read it yet? Oh my god, Where the Crawdads Sing. Like literally everyone on BookTube was like, you need to read this. And I was like, okay. Unfortunately for me, I liked this book a lot, but I don't think I loved it the way everyone wanted me to, I think. But I still read it because of you guys and because of everyone's love for this book. I still ended up giving this one like a 3 or a 3.5 out of 5, so I still liked it. That also applies for The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, because as soon as I read The Great Alone, everybody was like, why haven't you read The Nightingale? The Nightingale, oh my god, The Nightingale. I finally picked this book up earlier this year, and I am so freaking glad I did. I'm so freaking glad that you guys like harassed me about reading this book, because it is a 5 out of 5, like one of my favorite books that I've ever read. And it's so out of my comfort zone, but it's so goddamn beautiful. Oh my god. Another book that I read because of you guys is The Silent Patient, which is crazy because now this is also one of my favorite books of the year, one of the best thrillers I have ever read. And I remember like I picked this book for my book of the month pick, so I obviously wanted to read it, but then I kind of like brushed it to the side and forgot about it for a few months, and everybody was like, when the book are you gonna read The Silent Patient? And I was like, oh yeah, like I should probably read that. And then me and Jacqueline actually buddy read this one together, and holy crap, dude, I'm so glad you guys kept recommending this book to me, because oh my god, it was so good. And it's one of my favorite books, and I'm so happy about it. Another one that I read because of you guys is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. After I made that one video last year called Things I Hate in Romance, where I was talking about how much I hate insta-love and I appreciate slow burns, everybody in the world was like, why haven't you read Mariana Zapata yet? What are you even doing? Like, read Mariana Zapata. And they were saying The Wall of Winnipeg and Me is her best book. And since that video, I have read 3 books by Mariana Zapata, and The Wall of Winnipeg and Me is my favorite. This book is so good, and I'm so happy that I read it because of you guys. Like, you just kept recommending it to me, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, it's like one of the slowest burns of all of the Burns romance novels. One book that I read because of BookTube back in the day, like when I first started watching BookTube, is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. Like, I can't remember anybody who specifically really loved this book, but I just remember this book obviously being around everywhere in like 2012, 2013 times. And I actually read this book like way before my Instagram started or this channel started. Like, I read this back in like 2013 when I was in high school, and I actually didn't really like it the first time that I read it, but then I listened to the audiobook again a few years later, and I really enjoyed the audiobook for this. So like I have like a mixed relationship with this book, like mixed feelings about it, but I did read this book because of the hype on BookTube. Another book that was actually really popular too back in the day on BookTube was Beauty Queens by Libba Bray. This book was like super controversial and just really talked about a lot on BookTube, and so I read it because of all the hype it was getting on BookTube. Book was very strange. It definitely wasn't for me, but I could see why it was getting so much hype because it was just so different and so unique from everything else out there. The next one I have is Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. I can't remember who specifically really loved this book, but I just remember seeing this book kind of going around BookTube and on Twitter actually too, and everybody saying that this book has one of the best audiobooks in the world. They're freaking right. I like read this book while simultaneously listening to the audiobook, and it was one of the best reading experiences that I ever had. So whoever recommended the audiobook, I don't remember who it was, but thank you. Another book that I definitely read because of BookTube is Queens of Geek by Jen Wilde. I remember it was about like probably like 2 years ago whenever this book came out that everyone was obsessed with this book. Like, I just saw it everywhere because this book has a lot of great representation in it. But honestly, I thought this book was just okay. Like, I thought it was cute, but I thought the romance felt very like insta-love, and it was just like your standard like young adult kind of cliche book, so it didn't really work out for me. But I still appreciated the story, and I appreciate the like love that everyone has for this book. The next one I have is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, because believe it or not, I actually saw this book going around a lot on BookTube, and like I saw a lot of reviews for this on Goodreads like that I stumbled across, and I saw this book on Instagram. Like, I saw this book everywhere, and I was just like, what even is that book about? Like, it just has the most interesting cover, I think. I saw a lot of people on BookTube actually hating on this book because they were saying like it's too depressing and no book should be that sad, like there's no story, it's just tragedy porn. And so it kind of honestly made me even more interested in reading it because of all the hate it was receiving. Oh my gosh, dude, this book, I am so freaking glad that I read this book. Like, this is one of the most depressing books that I've ever read, but it's so much more than just tragedy porn. Like, it's so beautiful, so good, and this is one of my favorite books of all time, like ever. Right, and the last one that is my most recent read that I read because of you guys is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. And I actually read this because in my Romanceathon vlogs that I did in June, everyone was commenting being like, why haven't you read All the Ugly and Wonderful Things yet? You guys were saying that you thought that I would like it because it's very controversial and because there's like a forbidden taboo romance. And I really enjoyed this book. Like, this book was gut-wrenching, and it was so sad, and it kind of like tore a freaking hole in my heart. But I'm so glad that I read it, and you guys definitely know my taste. Like, I gave this book 5 stars. Like, it was really, really powerful shit. So thank you. Thank you. Alright, those are all the books that I've read because of BookTube. Isn't it so crazy that like you can find some of your favorite books of all time just because you watch another booktuber online like freaking out about it, and it just makes you like so excited. I was wondering if you guys would want to see like kind of the flip side of this video, like maybe like 10 to 20 books I want to read because of booktubers, and just kind of mention like books that I have moved up on my TBR because of other booktubers' excitement about it, or just like books I've discovered recently because of other booktubers that I really want to read. Like, would that be a video that you guys would want to see or care about? Or yeah, thank you guys so much for 20k. Again, I really appreciate it. I think my next video is probably going to be about Lover by Taylor Swift, because I want to do like a full album reaction review kind of video about it. That might be coming up next, so stay tuned. And thank you guys so much for watching as always. I will see you guys soon with a new video.